Let us go on and look at mountains. The Quran has more than a dozen verses stating that God placed firm and unmovable mountains on the earth. And in some of these verses, the mountains are listed as either a blessing for believers or a warning for the unbelievers. One example of this is found in the Surah Luqman, 31:10-11, where the mountains are one of 5 warnings. It says, He has created the heavens. It says He has created the heavens without supports that you can see, and has cast Al-Ka onto the earth firm mountains, Rawasiya, lest it should shake with you. In the prophets, Al-Anbiya, 21:31, as one of 7 warnings, we read, and we have set on the earth firm mountains, lest it should shake with you, with them. Finally, in the B, Nahl 16:15, says, and He has cast Al-Ka onto the earth firm mountains, Rawasiya, lest it should shake with you. We see then that the believers and unbelievers are told that Allah has done this great thing. He's thrown down and placed the mountains so that the earth will not shake violently with them. Therefore, we must ask ourselves, what did they understand? In the next 2 verses, another picture is given. The News, Anaba 78:6-7. Have we not made the earth an expanse and the mountains as stakes, el-jibala otadan, as those used to anchor a tent in the ground? And then the overwhelming, el-ghashiyah, 88:17-19. Do they, the unbelievers, not look at the mountains, el-jibal, how they've been pitched like a tent? Here men are told that the mountains are placed as tent pegs. Tent pegs keep the tent stable. So again, the idea is put forward that the mountains will keep the earth from shaking. A third picture is presented in the word rawasiya, used for mountains. This word comes from the Arabic root arsa, and the same root is used for the Arabic word for anchor. To throw out or cast the anchor is al-qa al-mirsa. So instead of cast the anchor to keep the ship from moving, we have cast the mountains to keep the earth from shaking. From these pictures, it is clear that Muhammad's followers understood that the mountains were thrown down like tent pegs to keep a tent in place, like an anchor to hold a ship in place, to stop the earth from moving, i.e. limit earthquakes. But in fact, this is false. The forming of mountains causes earthquakes. Therefore, these verses present a definite problem. Dr. Maurice Bukai recognized this and discussed them in his book, The Bible, the Quran, and Science. After quoting the above verses about mountains, he says, modern geologists describe the folds in the earth as giving foundation to the mountains, and the stability of the earth's crust results from this phenomenon of these folds. When asked about this, Professor of Geology Dr. David A. Young says, while it is true that many mountain ranges are composed of folded rock, and the folds may be of large scale, it's not true that the folds render the crust stable. The very existence of the folds is evidence of instability in the crust. In other words, mountains don't keep the earth from shaking. Their formation caused and still causes the surface of the earth to shake. Geological theories at the present time propose that the hardened crust of the earth is made of sections or plates, which slowly move in relation to each other. Sometimes the plates separate, like North and South America separating from Europe and Asia, and Europe and South Africa. And sometimes they go together, and they slide next to each other, and they bump into each other. And then they cause earthquakes. An example of this time of mountain formation is found in the Middle East, where the migration of Arabia toward Iran has resulted in the Zagros range in Iran. In many parts of the world, as one travels along the roads, one sees a hillside where the sandstone layers, which were horizontal when they were deposited, are now sticking up at angles. And so here you can see these sandstone layers, which were horizontal in the beginning, now they're sticking up at 75 degrees, where they were pushed up there by an earthquake, by the mountains being formed. Sometimes the plates get caught on each other and stop sliding. During this period, great forces are built up, When the forces of friction are overcome, the piece of plate that was stuck lurches forward, causing the shock wave of a thrust quake. And all of a sudden it goes thunk like this. In a recent earthquake, it was calculated that the Cocos Plate in Mexico suddenly jumped forward 3 meters. Well, if your house suddenly jumped 3 meters, it would be a catastrophe. Another type of mountain is that formed by volcanoes. Lava and ash from inside the earth are thrown out and piled up until a high mountain is formed, even from the bottom of the sea. And we can see this kind of action in this picture. I hope you can see it. Not clear, is it? The ocean crust is right here, and the continental crust is there, and the oceanic crust is going down under the continental crust, and mountains have been formed here. Here's a volcano, and here is the magma or the molten rock going up through the volcano. And here's another volcano with magma going up. And so this is how the mountains are formed and earthquakes are formed. In the case of some igneous mountains, molten rock intrudes into the throat of a volcano's opening and cools, form a relatively dense intrusion, which extends below the surface of the earth. So if this got stuck and sealed, then it would be like a plug. However, it's not a root. It does not bear the weight of the mountain. It's really a plug. Therefore, on occasion, pressure builds up under the plug, and the volcano explodes, as happened in the South Pacific at Krakatoa in 1883, when the whole island was blown away. And it happened in Mount St. Helena in our days, when the mountain was blown away. We can conclude from this information that mountains were formed originally with movement and shaking, and that now, in the present, earthquakes are caused by their continued formation. When the plates buckle over each other, there are earthquakes. When the volcanoes erupt, there can be earthquakes. However, it is clear that the followers of Muhammad were understanding these verses to say that Allah threw the mountains down as tent pegs or anchors to keep the earth from shaking. Throwing the mountains down into the earth may be poetry, but to say that mountains keep the earth from shaking is a severe difficulty, which is out of step with modern science.
In the field of geology we have come to know today, the geologists tell us that the radius of the earth is approximately 3,750 miles. And the deeper layers, they are hot and fluid and cannot sustain life. And the superficial part of the earth's crust which we live on, it is very thin, hardly 1 to 30 miles. Some portions are thicker, but majority 1 to 30 miles. And there are high possibility that this superficial layer, the earth's crust, it will shake. It is due to the folding phenomena which gives rise to mountain ranges, which gives stability to this earth. Quran says in Surah Nabah, chapter number 78, verse number 6 and 7, we have made the earth as an expanse, wal jabal outada, and the mountains as stakes. The Quran doesn't say mountains were thrown up as stakes, mountains as stakes. Arabic word autad means stakes, meaning tent peg. And today we have come to know, in the study of modern geology, that mountain has got deep roots. This was known in the second half of the 19th century. And the superficial part that we see of the mountain is a very small percentage. The deeper part is within. Exactly like a stake, how it is driven in the ground. You can only see a small part on top, the majority is down in the ground. Or like a tip of the iceberg, you can see the tip on the top, and about 90% is beneath water. The Quran says in Surah Ghashiyah, chapter 88, verse number 19, and Surah Naziyat, chapter number 79, verse number 32, wal jibala arsaha, and we have made the mountain standing firm on the earth. Made the mountain standing firm on the earth. Today, after modern geology has advanced, and Dr. William Campbell said that, by the theory of plate tectonics, it was propounded in 1960, which gives rise to mountain ranges, the geologists today do say that the mountains give stability to the earth. Not all geologists, but many do say. I have not come across a single geological book, and I challenge Dr. William Campbell to produce a single geological book, not his personal correspondence with the geologist. That doesn't carry weight. His personal correspondence with Dr. Keith Moore, documented proof. And if you read the book, The Earth, which is referred by almost all the universities in the field of geology, one of its authors by the name of Dr. Frank Press, who was the advisor to the former president of USA, Jimmy Carter, and was the president of the Academy of Sciences of USA, he writes in his book that the mountains are wedge-shaped, it has deep roots within, and he says that the function of the mountain is to stabilize the earth. And the Quran says in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 31, in Surah Luqman, chapter 31, verse number 10, as well as in Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse number 15, that we have made the mountain standing firm on the earth, lest it would shake with them and with you. The function of the mountain in the Quran is given to prevent the earth from shaking. Nowhere does the Quran say that the mountain prevents the earthquake. And Dr. William Campbell said, he writes in his book and even in the talk, that you find in the mountainous regions there are various earthquakes, and mountains cause earthquake. Point to be noted, nowhere does the Quran say that mountains prevents earthquake. The Arabic word for earthquake, as Dr. William Campbell knows Arabic, is zilzal or zalzala. But the words used in these three verses I quoted, it is tamida. Tamida means to shake, to sway, to swing. And Quran says in Surah Luqman, chapter 31, verse number 10, as well as Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse 15, we have put on the earth mountain standing firm, lest it would shake with you. It is tamida bikum, shake with you, indicating if the mountains were not there, if you would have walked, if you would have moved, even the earth would have moved with you. If you would have swayed, even the earth would have swayed with you. And we know normally when we walk on the earth doesn't shake. And the reason for this is, according to Dr. Frank Press and Dr. Najjar, who's from Saudi Arabia, and he wrote a full book on geological concepts in the Quran, answering almost everything what Dr. William Campbell has said in detail. And Dr. William Campbell, in his book, he writes that if mountains prevent the shaking of the earth, then how come you find earthquake in the mountainous regions? I said, nowhere does the Quran say mountain prevents earthquake. Earthquake is zilzal. And if you see the definition in the Oxford Dictionary, it says, earthquake is due to conversion of the superficial crust of the earth due to release of compressed seismic waves due to crack in the rock or due to volcanic reaction. The Quran speaks about zalzala in Surah Zalzal, chapter 99, but here it speaks about tamida bikum, to prevent the earth from shaking with you. And in reply to the statement that if mountains prevent earthquakes, how come you find earthquakes in mountainous region? The reply is that if I say that medical doctors, they prevent the sickness and disease in a human being, and if someone argues, if doctors prevent the sickness and diseases in a human being, how come you find more sick people in the hospital where there are doctors than at home where there are no doctors?